This morning on BRN, Wall Street is entering the best 6 months of the year. And joining me now to break it all down, Jane King is a financial journalist joining us from the NASDAQ. Jane, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program again this morning.
Great to be here.
And I want to preface this that we are having this conversation right before the election. So as of the time of this interview, we don't yet know who the new president, what the makeup of the House, the Senate, et cetera, will be. So that is
Questions, yes.
right. But at the time that this show actually runs, Jane, we may not actually know who the president will be because they have to do a lot of counting. We've talked about that. So Jane, let's talk about, we talked about in recent weeks with you about October, September. Let's talk about November forward. Is there more room for the stock market to run, to grow?
Well, if it follows historical trends, the answer is yes. November to May is the best time of the year traditionally for stocks. Of course, we got that Santa Claus rally that everybody kind of counts on right around Christmas time. We do, of course, every year have some unique challenges, but the election is one this year. We've seen rising Treasury yields, although that's changed a little bit with the weak jobs report that we got on November 1st. And also geopolitics. It feels like there's more kind of hotspots in the world going on that could disrupt a rally. But since World War II, November to April has delivered an average return of 7% compared to 2% for the rest of the year. And of course, there's all these sayings on Wall Street, sell in May and go away. And this is related to that. You sell in May and buy in November. But each year is different. So who knows what we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, past performance is not indicative of future results. And that, by the way, that's a disclosure on pretty much every fund company's prospectus, right? Jane, let's talk about we just had Halloween. We're into November. Now it's time for sales and retail sales. Consumer debt, though, Jane, high, growing, credit card debt in particular. What does this mean for our retail friends, especially our small businesses, as they're looking to do where they make the most of their money Black Friday into the holidays?
Well, I think the retailers know this is an issue and they have tried to adjust for that. I mean, we're hearing about Target is starting their Black Friday deals on November 1st. I drove by Macy's on the way to work this morning and they've already got their Christmas decorations up, like We Believe and things like that. And I'm like, this is just one big, like everything is morphed into one big holiday. So I think the retailers have lowered prices on a lot of items. We've seen the big retailers lower prices on thousands of items. Many of them are offering unbelievable deals for Thanksgiving dinner. Target has a dinner for four for $20 this year, Thanksgiving. And Sam's Club has it, and Aldi and Walmart. And the retailers are spreading things out over a longer period of time to give people more time to buy things and pay that off. So I think they know, they're well aware this is an issue, and they're just trying to find the right mix of items to sell.
And Jane, you mentioned some of the geopolitics, and I want to ask you, typically after an election, and again, everything's unique, but let's just say hypothetically, a candidate is determined. What does that mean typically for the stock market? How does the stock market typically react after a president is elected or there's a makeup of Congress? Does it fall? Does it typically go up? What in general? I'm not asking you to prognosticate here.
The market likes split rule in Washington.
Okay.
So they like either a Republican or Democrat president and then the opposite party controlling Congress, so that things are kind of status quo, no really crazy spending and policies go into effect. There's another party there to check them. And so that's what I'm hearing from analysts is what they want. Now I am been hearing a lot more chatter lately than in years past about the concern about the deficit and the debt and how that has been sending treasury yields higher. And I think these Wall Street people really want somebody who's going to come in and get a hold on the spending and even cut. And President Trump, former President Trump has talked about that. He's talked about bringing Elon Musk on to bring the, Department of Government Efficiency or whatever he's calling it, Doge. So, that might be looked at favorably upon Wall Street if they really follow through with it. That's going to be difficult.
Jane, let's talk a little bit about the jobs report before the election, not great numbers. GDP a little off for the quarter relative to the expected. What does this bode for? How does this all tie into what the Federal Reserve could do? Because that in talking with you, that everything seems to fall on what Jerome Powell and his team are doing, right? I mean, it just everything you and I talk about and I see on TV, everything kind of results back to that.
So my first thought when this number came out this morning was that Jerome Powell is breathing a sigh of relief because this lets some pressure off of them on interest rates, because interest rates are going down in the free market, where the Federal Reserve doesn't have to manipulate them quite so much. So the jobs report, by the way, very weak, 13,000 jobs, 12,000 jobs added during the month. It's the lowest since December of 2020. Hurricanes, strikes have something to do with that, but a much lower number. We thought it was going to be 113,000, even with the strikes and the hurricanes, and it came in 100,000 less than that. So really weak job growth in October.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be revised. Just making a joke. Lower up, maybe maybe they forgot to put a 0 on the report. All right, I'm making light of something that obviously doesn't need to be made light of. Jane, I want to kind of end on. Let's talk about mortgage rates and the real estate marketplace, because, I think we had heard that if interest rates were cut, that there would be a indirect effect on mortgage rates, and they're not directly correlated, right? I mean, they don't work in tandem with the Fed funds rate. So let's talk about mortgage rates. They're still up as of the time we're doing this interview. Thoughts about that?
Well, of course, we've already got an affordability issue with housing. A lot of people refinanced at 3% and do not want to put their houses on the market at 7%, which is what we're getting close to. I can't blame them. But you're right. I mean, the Fed cut rates, that's the Fed funds rate, which is what they loan to banks. It tends to have more of an impact on short-term loans, like credit cards and car loans versus the mortgage rates. But interest rates are also determined by the free market. And those have been going up really since September. So, and that's what determines mortgage rates. So we have seen those going up. Now, this jobs report may change everything. We'll see how we finish out the end of the year, but those 3% rates, doubtful we're going to see those again.
Jane, just to kind of I want to end on a positive note. So we talked about job numbers, we talked about the Fed. I don't know if this is positive, but, the new president, the new Congress, there's a lot on the plate. It's one thing to win an election. It's another thing to govern. There's a lot. You talked about the deficit, Jane. You talked about some of the job numbers in the economy. You talked about the geopolitical. There's a lot, no matter who wins, they've got a lot on their plate to work. They got to work with the Congress, right? So there's a lot of, it's going to be interesting to see. And the tax cuts, by the way, Jane, that's, I think, at the top of congressional agenda.
Yeah, I mean, there's tax cuts, there's border issues. There's, energy policy, which, depending on who's elected, can be totally different than what we've had over the past 4 years. So there's a lot of topics that will be tackled, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it makes your job fun, I'm sure, as you try to take this information and relay it to well over 100, maybe 200 different local television networks. And you're very generous with your time with us. Jane King, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again next week.
Okay, see you then.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details, of course, are at our website. And we're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.